Welcome to the Screen MDM Talks podcast hosted by me, Manju Daswani. This week our sponsor is MD Media Biz.
Hello, welcome back to Screen MDM Talks. I am here with Edgar Jaramillo, who's the founder of Break the Rules, which, like my little venture, is brand new, launched in November. Hi, Edgar.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
It is an absolute delight to have you. So you launched with a footprint across, let me get this right, LA, New York City, Miami, Mexico City, Bogota, and Buenos Aires, which is remarkable. And I know you're looking to work across multiple genres across North and South America. So before we get into what I know has been a great start for you, you came out of Vice Studios Latam. And again, as I have just launched my own company, I'm just curious for you, that journey for you, the opportunities that you saw 2025 was a rough year for the business for a lot of people. You rolled the dice on launching a new business at the end of the year. What motivated that desire and the gaps that you see in the market that you're really eager to fill?
Yeah, listen, Vice was an incredible experience for me. Vice was able to create something that's incredible, which is a brand that people recognize immediately. They were able to create this kind of like brand in which people would watch the content and they would immediately know that it was Vice without even a logo being on the screen. And that's what we as creators, we aim for. And huge companies like HBO, they have that branding where like people identify the type of content that it is. And there I was able to learn and grow. That was like the thing that to me was the most impactful, was like trying to figure out how we created this content that really represented not just great content, not just a great story, but it also represented a brand. And so with all of that coming out of Vice, it wasn't really an ending, but it was more of a natural evolution. I spent years building shows, coming across Latin America, the US Hispanic market, operating at scale across multiple territories, genres, cultures, right? And that experience gave me two things: confidence in execution, and from the Vice side, clarity and taste, because everything is very well curated, because if it doesn't align with the brand, then it doesn't work. And even though it could be a great story, if it didn't align with Vice, Vice would be like, we're not doing that story. It's not something Vice would ever do. To answer the later part of your question, the contraction in the industry last year actually made my decision easier, I want to say, because I think when the market tightens, buyers really stop chasing volume and they start chasing distinct voices, clear points of view, an IP with an identity. So that's exactly the pillars of Break the Rules.
No, I remember when you launched, your press release said that you wanted to be doing program that was fearless and fresh.
Yep.
And I know sometimes when there's market contraction, sometimes platforms start to look for less risk and things that maybe feel more familiar. So given just sort of the multiple things happening in the market where some people are leaning towards safety and others are taking more risk, because you have to take risk, I think, in order to make an impact in a landscape like this one. How has that sort of thinking curated your initial slate and the types of talent that you want to be aligning with and the types of stories you're developing in-house?
Yeah, well, listen, it's kind of like fresh and fearless for us isn't necessarily being edgy for the sake of it, right?
Yeah.
It's about going into these spaces that feel culturally relevant, stories that matter, but structurally underexplored, for a lack of a better term, I guess. We as a company, we're drawn to stories that sit in that intersection of like power, identity, culture, sports through a cultural lens, music as a social force, political or social events told through personal narratives. So, and we're a little less interested in the trend chasing and more stories that feel inevitable. So we're looking for those stories that spark a social commentary. So those kind of stories that you watch a documentary, you watch a scripted series, and people are buzzing about it because the story is either unbelievable or whatever, right? And in terms of like taking the risk, I think the risk is like mixing genres, playing with tone, building formats that feel big but still emotionally grounded. Fearless meaning not over sanitizing things for the algorithm, if that makes any sense.
It does. No, it does. I want to talk to you about coming out of Content America. I know it was a buzzy start of the year market. How was the response from the business been so far to the projects that you're taking out to the market?
So look, Content Americas was incredible. It was very encouraging. We felt very strongly in the appetite that there is in the market. And like,
Mm.
I can tell you without exaggerating, it might be, some people might be like, oh, this is so exaggerated, but I can tell you that I've seen more movement in 26 days of January than what I saw in all of 2025. So yeah, so our slate resonated, and I want to say it's because it's rooted in real cultural world and Latin music and sports that are driven with an identity focus, and it's premium unscripted formats that I think people are hungry to watch. So,
Yeah.
and we got such a great response, and it wasn't just us. Like overall, like I want to say the presence at the market was a little smaller compared to
Mm.
previous years, but
Yeah.
I want to say that the quality of meetings that we had and the people that were talking there
Mm.
had was excellent. And there was, the buyers were buying, the buyers
Yeah.
were entertaining pitches, they were interested in content versus
Huh.
last year. Like I can tell you, I was at Content Americas last year.
Mm.
I met with all the buyers, and the general response was, yeah, we'll see. We're just
Mm.
analyzing quarter by quarter because I don't know
Yeah.
where the budgets, and that was the response across the board.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Now let's talk a little bit about connected to algorithms, the discovery process, right? When you're looking for maximum cultural impact and franchise potential, and there are so many platforms and it's so hard to get discovered, how are you looking at that discovery conundrum? And I guess the role that, like, it used to be that you would sell a show and then your buyer would do all the work, right? Like they would market it, they would promote it, they would find the audience. How much of a role now do you two, as a producer, as a creative, have to play in helping your broadcast digital platform clients get these shows even to anyone's screens? Because discovery is so hard today.
Yeah, well, listen, when I was at Vice, we had such a tremendous muscle with that.
Yeah.
And I learned that support was key in the success of a lot of the projects that came from the Vice world. If we were premiering a documentary, it was symbiotic. So all of a sudden, we were on all of the Vice pressings,
Yeah.
Instagrams, pages that have millions and millions of followers. So
Yeah.
it was easier. At that point, I just had to be in touch with like Vice magazine, and all of a sudden it was everywhere, or the digital teams or whatever. But now it's a little more complicated. But I think
Yeah.
in respect to like smaller independent production studios like ours, I think the more you put into it to promote your show, the more you'll get back. It's just a matter of that. And
Yeah.
that also comes with building an online presence for your studio as well, so that
Mm.
you can in a way promote or advertise your own content, even though
Mm.
it's going to be on a Netflix or on a streamer, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that the marketing budgets have really changed for the networks,
Yeah.
and they don't do the promotion that they once did unless it's like a huge IP. In most of these cases, it's just you're lucky if you're in the coming up previews on any of the platforms, and that's all you get. So the more presence you can build organically, the more you are going to be able to successfully promote your content. So like it's important for, I guess, we're an independent studio, and at the same time trying to be social influencers with our own brand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you really do have to wear a lot of hats today, don't you, when you're making content? You can't be
100%.
specialized in one thing anymore. And I want to talk about this footprint that you have, and I guess how you're sort of leveraging the creative ecosystems in these very different markets, and how you're looking to promote collaboration across the people that you're working with in this footprint.
Yeah, so I have four business partners. I am based out of LA. One of my other business partners is based out of New York, and the other two are in Miami. Our
Mm.
headquarters and our animation studio, we have an animation studio that has mocap technology. We have
Yeah.
a studio here in Miami for that, and we believe it's the only studio, the only mocap studio south of Orlando in South Florida. So we're very
Huh.
lucky to have that. We have a presence in Mexico City. We have a head of
Yeah.
production there as well, and we're fully set up. And then in Colombia and Argentina, we have very strategic partners to be able to produce content with the incredible creatives that are both in Colombia and in Argentina. In Colombia, there's incredible creatives and incredible stories, of course, for the South American market. But additionally, it's also a very strategic move to be there because they also have incredible incentives, right? So in Colombia, you can their production incentives, I believe, up to 40%. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, if you put $100,000 in, you can potentially get back $40,000, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a massive thing, especially with when you have tight budgets, especially when we're able to get these projects that are self-financed, right? So let's say in a budget that's 1.4, 1.5 for us in Colombia, shooting it in Colombia, that could mean that 1.4, 1.5 project actually was a $1 million project for us as a full investment because we get the money back, right? So that's very strategic, and Colombia is having a boom in production because of that. There's productions from all over the world, like the United States, Europe, everywhere. They're shooting there in Colombia for that reason. And then our in Argentina, our partnership is with a production company that there, and one, stories that are incredible that come out of Argentina. You know, they have so many, they have such a rich culture. And they are also in the region. They have one of the most experienced creative teams in television. They have a rich film history. They have a rich TV history. Like, of course, for budgets, it just makes sense, you know?
Sure. Now, I know there was a lot of talk about vertical video at Content Americas. There was
Yes.
microdrama dominated. I was at Asia TV Forum in December. It was nothing but microdramas there. I know MIP London has an entire microdrama strand. I think it's taking up a lot of people's viewing time, and I think a lot of traditional content producers are trying to figure out how to get in on that space. What are you looking at in the vertical video space? How are you positioning yourself there?
Look, we think vertical content for a lot of people is either like, you know, a pivot or a way to get money in. We think vertical content is a different language, right? A different language that we all got to learn how to speak and we all got to learn how to be fluent in. There are benefits for it, and then there's also their downsides to it. But the reality is that as younger generations, not even Z, but like Alpha and the ones that are coming after them, they're not even watching Netflix anymore. You know, they're just on their phones all day and they're watching this vertical content. That's what they're watching. So it really is another language. Just like 10, 15 years ago, we all had to learn the Netflix language and the streamer language, you know? It's like we're all learning that language now. And it has been, I think, it hasn't been that long since people have been really taking vertical content seriously. And in the very little that it has been in production, the curve has been incredible. You know, at the beginning, it was like some like international soap opera with like very mediocre actors, you know, and very mediocre production, you know, people watched it, people paid for it. And now all of a sudden, you're getting better and better actors. People want to be a part of it. And productions are like, oh, what is this that's happening over here? But again, we're not taking it like, we're not dismissing it and saying, we're do documentaries, so we're like this is beneath us. At the other way around, we think it's a completely different language and one that everybody needs to know how to talk, because it became a branch of the production tree.
Right, right. And then just in terms of your production slate, are you mostly producing for sort of traditional commissioners, streamers? Are you looking to do a digital first slate? Like, how are you looking at crafting that, YouTube originals, all of that?
Yeah, so we have a few things in parallel. Our main focus is premium series, right? That are catered to either streamers or self-financing or independent financing for like festival markets, so that eventually, you know, they can later be at a streamer. We're trying to focus right now on bigger IP, right? So bigger IP, bigger names. Our slate right now, it's 70% unscripted, mostly documentaries, whether it's features or series, in three specific genres, which are sports, music, and true crime. Sports and music, because we believe that those are the constants of society. You know, there's always a sports fan and there's always a music fan. You know, it doesn't matter what year, what day, what month, it doesn't matter. That those are the constant. And true crime, because for some reason we're all a little twisted and we want to know who murdered the guy and who buried the person in the other side of the corner. And we want to know. We really want to know. And then the other 30%, most of the scripted series that we're developing are based on true events with the strategy, so that once we attach an IP, so like for example, we have this incredible musician that we're working on his bio epic documentary, and we have the rights to also develop the scripted, right? So it's kind of like being, and we think it's a missed opportunity for when the studios do a documentary or a scripted series, like for example, or a scripted movie, like for example, the Freddie Mercury movie. There has to be a Freddie Mercury documentary in there, out there somewhere, you know? It's just kind of like symbiotic, I guess. So in that sense, we're trying to keep the 360 of the project. So once we're attaching a documentary to our slate, then we're trying to consolidate it so that we can also have the script. We got a great response to that from networks at Content Americas, because that is also something that they're doing, in which they're like, oh, maybe for this project, the strategy will be better to go with the scripted and then the documentary, or the other way around. And they love that we had both, you know? And then there is, because of the mocap studio and everything that I was telling you, we have an animation slate as well. And that animation slate is being focused for adult animation. We believe that there's a huge gap in the market, especially in Latin America, to have something that is animated and that has characters that people from Latin origin or Hispanic can relate to, right? If you really think about it, there is The Simpsons, there's Family Guy, there's American Dad, there is Rick and Morty, but it's always about an American family that immigrants from all over the world, they just watch it because it's good and they're beautiful characters, but it's just like an X-ray of an American family. Like, it's the stereotypical, they're all overweight, they all drink beer, you know, they all hang out with their friends, they all kind of mistreat their wife a little bit, you know? It's kind of like all the same, right? So we're trying to create adult animation that if you're Hispanic, you're going to relate to the characters immediately, and you're going to know like, oh, wow, this is incredible, because you know who they are or you know what they represent. And if you're a white guy from, I don't know, Idaho, you still think that the series is funny or endearing because they're just great characters. Kind of like the same way that happens to us with like Family Guy. Everybody loves Family Guy, right? But all over the world, whether they missed a little bit of the context of the jokes or not, that's not the thing. Is like people just fall in love with those characters, and that's kind of like what we're trying to achieve.
Was there anything else about what's happening at Breakthroughs that we haven't talked about yet that you wanted to cover with me?
We're up to a great start. There's a lot of movement in the marketplace, and I hope the next time we talk, I can tell you about all the projects that we're working. We have a great momentum, and I couldn't be prouder of everything that we're building here at the studio.
That's fantastic. Well, hopefully we will catch up again soon, and we definitely have to talk when you and I both have our 1-year anniversaries in November of launching our own company. So we will definitely stay in touch. Thank you so much, Edgar. It was a real delight having you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Screen MDM Talks podcast, hosted by me, Mantra Daswani. Kate Roach is our VP of Global Ad Sales and Business Development. Production was done by Anand Patel. Musical score performed and composed by Jahan Raymond.